The whole night was full of mishaps, starting with Keith Sims and his uncontrollable bonnet in the super sedans. But even in the heats it was Pine and Slay who commanded the attention of the crowd, both muscling for early points. By the time the 25-lap main race came about, Pine in car 9 and Slay in car 1 were neck and neck. However, a mishap slowed the American down enough to give Pine a lead, and then tragedy struck. Another car smashed into the American, and it was Slay who was pulled up for balking on a corner and sent to the rear of the pack, taking with him his hopes of catching Pine. Round 1 and the money went to John Pine, with Bernie Roberts and Dennis Sims in second and third respectively. And another setback at the race meet, the litre car main event was declared short of its distance due to some nasty rollovers.
The freak accident took place a few metres from the shoreline of the picturesque Mile Lakes. The 30-year-old Sydney father had been inside a tent with his 3-year-old daughter when the 100-year-old paperbark tree came crashing down on top of him. His toddler daughter narrowly escaped injury.
As soon as we heard the lady screaming and she was running out to the water, we knew there was big trouble.
The family had only arrived at the popular 15 barbecue camping ground 20 minutes beforehand. Mr Gaines' 29-year-old wife, who'd been standing beside a nearby sunshade, received minor injuries when falling branches hit her. She raised the alarm and fellow holidaymakers did their best to save her husband.
Anyone who had a jack or a saw just went and got what they needed to, and timber and what have you to help lever the tree up and get it, wedge things under it, and yeah, we eventually got the tree off him, but it was all a bit too late.
The National Parks and Wildlife Service has contracted a tree surgeon to establish why the tree came down when it did.
In this case, we have no idea. It's impossible to tell at this stage.
It's like getting hit by lightning, I guess. Just something you don't imagine.
In an ironic twist to the Boxing Day tragedy, the victim apparently hated camping. He'd been here to holiday with friends and family. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
Boxing Day crowd looked like leaving empty-handed when Scholes went wide for United before a David Beckham cross connected perfectly with Solskjaer 5 minutes from time. It was the Scandinavian striker's 5th goal in as many matches and keeps the Red Devils 8 points clear of second-placed Arsenal on top of the Premier League table with Solskjaer 5 minutes from time.
It was the Scandinavian striker's 5th goal in as many matches and keeps the Red Devils
Yesterday, both of Newcastle's rescue helicopters and even Tamworth's helicopter were in the air at the same time, servicing the north coast. It's a trend the rescue pilots and paramedics are concerned about, but are also prepared for.
Unfortunately, this time of the year it always starts to get busy for us. As people move into their holiday mode, we get ready to start doing some work.
However, the busy time of year seems to involve a different kind of rescue.
With the hot weather that we've had lately, people are out and about in the water, and of course we get the recreational accidents, which have accounted for a majority of the work that we've done over since Christmas Day.
And the helicopter crew say that they're accidents which could be avoided if people would heed the relevant warnings.
We've had an increase in particularly spinal injuries, people diving into unfamiliar waters and striking their heads. I mean, yesterday alone we had 2 spinal injuries on the Central Coast. We had 1 at Mungo Brush.
They're serious accidents too. One of the Central Coast men dived into water at a popular beach before checking the depth and hit his head on the sand. Suffering a fracture to his lower spine, he was flown to Sydney's Royal North Shore Hospital for surgery. Adam Harper, NBN News.
Newcastle won the toss and, hoping overnight rain put a bit of juice into the number 1 sports ground pitch, sent North Coast in. Given it only had the services of fast bowler Mark Cameron for today, it was an easier decision to make, but quick wickets were essential. Opener Daniel Stone had his own ideas, cracking a quick-fire 21 which included a 6 and 2 fours, all off Jace Lawson. His partner Ted Neves only got an edge on Cameron, with Aaron Alley doing the rest. Lawson caught up with Stone in the following over, and it was 2 for 27. Cameron kept up his barrage. The young quick will actually bowl against the Australian Test team on New Year's Eve in training with the Bush Blues, while Lawson grabbed another with Matthew Drees gone for a duck. That brought Nathan Munro to the crease, and his 75 got North Coast to a competitive 210. Across at number 2, Central North was 4 for 49 when Adam Jones came in. He took just 11 scoring shots to reach 41 as he pulled his side out of trouble. He liked the look of spinner Jeremy Beale as well, comfortably moving to 62. But he went for one too many, Jamie Rowe taking a great catch to end his cavalier knock. Central North collapsed for 154, Bill taking the last 6 wickets before passing the required total 3 wickets down. Ask either Andy Harper or Asala Massey and both will tell you that they're fit to play tomorrow night against Sydney United. The question remains though, will they both get a run in the top side?
I feel more confident now that I've gone through a week's full training. Now it's up to the coach whether he's going to put me on the park or put me in the bench. That's totally up to him.
And late today, Coach Lee Sterry was still tossing up selection ideas, but admitted he was leaning towards playing at least one of the strikers that are returning from the bench and starting with Daniel McBreen. Massey hopes he's the one to get the nod after what's been a frustrating 6-match stint on the sideline with a knee injury.
Especially the game that we played at home against Wollongong, I was very disappointed.
The biggest hurdle the Fijian star believes he's cleared is simply having the confidence in a leg that's still to fully repair.
Confidence plays a big role in that, and for me I'm quite confident that I can go on the park tomorrow.
The match kicks off tomorrow night at Marathon Stadium at 7:30.
Six-year-old Stevie Decker and his parents have come a long way in the past year, not just geographically but emotionally as well. Their lives changed in February when Stevie fell ill and was checked by doctors in Sri Lanka.
And then they said that they will have to do a bone marrow test which confirmed that he has leukemia.
With the help of friends, the Sri Lankan government and Ronnie's employer, they raised the $25,000 needed to bring Stevie to Newcastle's John Hunter Hospital that has an 80% success rate in curing his form of cancer.
He has both oral chemotherapy, chemotherapy into the muscles, chemotherapy into his central line. He's had lumbar punctures to give chemotherapy. So he really has had the entire range of therapy that you can get, really.
Since starting treatment here in September, Stevie's cancer has gone into remission, doctors describing him as a brave little man.
There's no doubt children cope much better than adults, certainly better than their parents often. But it's such a big thing to put a child through, and I think it matures them far beyond their years because of what they have to go through, and Stevie I think is no exception to that.
He does not think that he has leukemia, and he does not feel that he has a central line. He just plays around and he makes friends and he's doing well. So far so good.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's the blasé attitude of drivers that's frustrating police the most. People still ignoring warnings as Operation Safe Arrival reaches its halfway mark. In the Hunter, police have charged 70 people with drink driving since last Friday. And with 101 people arrested for the same offence during last year's entire operation, police are alarmed.
It is a major concern, and with the New Year's festivities not even commencing yet, we're looking for a busy Christmas and New Year period.
It's not only the nonchalant attitude of drivers that's concerning authorities. The increased number of thefts on Newcastle's beaches has police worried beachgoers aren't looking after their own property. Thieves are keeping police busy, taking advantage of people's carelessness.
We believe there is a network of people that are watching the movements of swimmers on beaches, and they are taking advantage of their poor personal security.
NRMA figures show a 35% increase in thefts from cars parked next to state beaches over the past year, the majority of which occurred over summer. Alison Fletcher, NBN News.
In New South Wales, the Hunters Vineyards are the second most popular tourist destination behind Sydney. And with the recent Olympic Games, expectations were high for a boom in tourist numbers to the region. But that wasn't to be.
The visitor rate that we all expected here in the Hunter certainly extended into the vineyards, and during that time we didn't get the numbers of people that we expected.
However, the lull seems to have passed, with people favouring the region once again. Cellar door sales up and retail sales also up.
November and December have been outstanding months for our wine sales and put us back into a good position for the end of the year.
And despite some recent rough weather, those in the know are predicting a good yield from this season's harvest, largely due to a mild spring and recent cool conditions. However, there seems to have been a gradual shift in the preference of wine by the buyers. People are now finding the red wines more palatable than the whites, which have been favoured for around 25 years now.
That's a trend that's been noticed right throughout the community. It hasn't happened just in the last few months. It's been actually occurring over a period of the last few years, but really the figures over the last few months have brought home to everybody's realisation that people are shifting from white to red.
This season's grapes will be harvested next month. Adam Harper, NBN News.
The night sky above Jesmond lit up just after 3 a.m. after a fire began at the Heaton Birmingham Gardens Bowling Club. 3 Newcastle fire units were quickly on scene.
Upon arrival of the 1st Brigade, the building was well alight, and that hindered our access to the cool room area, which was around the seat of the fire.
In that cool room were items which could have caused serious injury.
Well, the big gas cylinders, they exploded and gave the residents a bit of a scare, plus the firemen.
The blaze was under control by about 7 o'clock. A few hours later, the Brigade's Fire Investigation Unit and the Newcastle Crime Section sifted through the charred remains of the club.
Contents including poker machines and monies associated with that, the office area, the whole interior's been completely gutted, so they'll be lucky to salvage anything out of the club, to be honest.
A point not lost on the club's vice president.
I spend a lot of time here, and most members do, and it's like a second home, and it's gone.
The 37-year-old club was insured. The blaze is being treated as suspicious.
During the fire nearby, there was a barbecue area at the side of the club which had been forced, and entry had been gained to that, and about 50 metres away there was a skateboard rink where there was a couple of shopping trolleys full of newspaper satellites.
Fire just for the kicks of it, I don't think it's right,
Catherine Turner, NBN News.
They'll crash through things. We've had dogs go through plate glass windows to get out and away from the noise.
You simply couldn't afford to relax in the sprint car final, and for 2 Americans it was extra hard. Brent Kading and Danny Smith raced not only themselves but a field of Aussies keen to make sure they weren't shown up on their home track. While there were a few stoppages, most of the race was a three-way jostle, with Sydney's Warren Ferguson leading from Robbie Farr and Kading, with the American showing little concern for his machine in the race for line honours. As the front runners ran into traffic, the Californian made his move, taking the lead with 8 laps remaining. It also gave Farr a chance to press ahead, while Danny Smith moved up into third as well, but it was to be Kading's night. Fellow Yank Chris Slay returns to Tomago tomorrow night to race in the Super Sedans. Sick of having starts recalled, crews got just 2 chances today after the field again broke early the first time. Cave Beach Quality Meats disqualified the second time around, but when they did get away, Chris Nicholson's crew saw plenty of clear sailing wide of the fleet. From there, it was an even money bet who would make the early running, and when the field hit the first marker, 2GB had tuned into first. Airregard was hoping to have a good weekend with a win, while Skilled Engineering was never far from the front either. Fellow Belmont crew Luxaflex was always lurking, but it seemed this race was going to be a three-way fight. Sydney-based Airregard had trained on the lake several times in the lead up to this national title, and it seemed to be paying off. But it had to chase down 2GB and Skilled. The sail pointed the way for the Clint Bowen skippered craft, but they could have just followed John Boyd for the right way home. In fact, they did. As Skilled did yesterday, once it hit the lead, it was never in trouble, breaking out to a 3-minute lead by the finish. The Manly crews continued their dogfight with 2GB second, and Dryden's Law Office just sneaking home ahead of Airregard to round out the top placings. For a man whose game is built around speed, it's a rare sight to see Brad Widgerek matched in a foot race, let alone run down. Sydney United, though, seemed to do it all too easily on Friday night.
Yeah, everyone keeps reminding me of that, getting run down, mate. You're about the 12th person to tell me since Friday night.
His frustration only matched by the pain coming from his shins, with chronic soreness draining the midfielder's speed. Widgerek has been plagued by the problem for almost 2 years, costing him games in the past, with the only real long-term remedy being rest. But he's determined to play through it.
You just got to put up with it, you know. It's just one of those things that you just got to do it.
The same too for Andy Harper, who actually made his return to football on Friday night in the Youth League. His broken toe still isn't 100% repaired and isn't likely to be for the remainder of the season.
He's still feeling it when he pushes off on the toe. So it's one of those niggling things that, you know, at the end of the day he's just going to have to carry it now for the season. And we can't afford to break him down because we haven't got enough depth. So, you know, we've got to bring him back the right way so they don't break down and end up out for 3 months.
South Melbourne set on top of the NSL ladder after round 12, with United's next opponents Marconi just outside the top 6. The Stallions will have new signing Archie Thompson on deck to meet the second last place Newcastle outfit this weekend.
And they've just come off a good win again, so it's always going to be tough down there, but they're the sort of teams that you love to play.
Josh Blair and fellow clubmate Carly Reid always turn heads when they're training at Blacksmiths Beach. They're both heading to North Wollongong this weekend for round 3 of the series. After a big finish in round 2 at Coolangatta last month, Blair believes he's on track for a series win.
Obviously you like to say that now early in the season, but I really do feel that my training has been quite good this year, and I've got off to I think the greatest start that I possibly can, and if I can keep it going, I think this may be my year.
Blair defeated champion Kai Hurst in the last round and is keen for the next stoush.
I think he was quite disappointed up there not to be in that final 4 and to finish 6th. It's nice to know that I've got a few buffer points on Kai coming into this 3rd round.
Hurst is full of respect for his rival.
If there's any competitor that deserves to win it, it's definitely Josh, because he's been in it for so long, and he's always been the dark horse where he's always been 2nd, 3rd and 4th, and he's never really come out and won the series yet.
Josh and Carly don't normally get this close during training. Carly wants to improve her 14th placing in the women's event.
Actually pretty confident, because at least I know that now I can be up there in good form, so I'm really happy, really looking forward to this weekend.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
"64-year-old Dorothy Miller, her sister Sylvia and friend Dorothy Elford had been catching a train home to Newcastle from Sydney at 3 a.m. New Year's Day when a gang of 5 young men in their carriage turned violent. They turned on 2 brothers, aged 19 and the other 16, labelling them homosexuals.
And the young fella ran up again past me. He was screaming in horror, and this here fella who'd done the main kicking, he caught him up near the guard's van, and he literally kicked his face in.
The victim left helpless.
And they were in full view of the guard, and they never did a thing about it.
The bashing went on for at least 5 train stations, and aside from the women and a young girl looking on in terror, the carriage was empty. They say if it wasn't for a good Samaritan running in from another carriage, they're sure the outcome would have been a lot more tragic.
They should have had more security there. There was no security. I never seen any security on the platform even.
City Rail had promised every train on New Year's would have at least 2 security guards. The only comment City Rail would make is that it's concerned about the incident and is launching an investigation.
The police should have been called to meet the train.
But they weren't, although the brothers did report the assault.
Notwithstanding that it occurred at Wyong, we're extremely concerned. Police have a full report of it and are currently making inquiries.
As for this trio, they say the attack makes a mockery of City Rail's safety advice to sit near the guard's blue light. Vanessa Trezise, NBN News.
For the current and ex-employees of STP, finally something to smile about. They gathered outside the company gates this morning after word spread late yesterday that a deal had been reached and part of their owed entitlements, more than $3.3 million to 200 workers Australia-wide, could be recovered.
We've been to that close position several times, and so we were just maybe a little bit sceptical.
The National Australia Bank, the administrator and the Australian Manufacturing Workers Union have struck a deal. If it proceeds, STP's 200 workers would receive 3 payouts beginning on the 19th of January. The union says the exact amount is still to be finalised. The deal received unanimous support from the employees, who say they'll return to work on Monday. The Weeks brothers have been left out of this round of negotiations, but can appeal this deal if they want to in the Supreme Court.
Don't obstruct the deal and allow these workers and families to get on with their lives.
The union's dealings with the Weeks is not over though. There's the $1.25 million promised to the workers by another family member. It's been a long, hard road to the deal, 28 sacked since early December.
They say life's a shade of grey, various shades of grey, but this one was black and white. There's wrong and there's right. We was right, the Weekses were wrong.
For now though, this picket site should remain empty. Catherine Turner, NBN News.
Billed as a war, Tomago even looked like a battleground last night with a smokescreen, the latest tactic to stop Scott Slay from finding his way to the front. But in the 30-lap final, it was brilliant door-to-door driving duel between Slay and Robert Carrick, the pair jostling for almost half the race. Carrick's car, though, a casualty in the race for line honours. Keith Sims stepped up to the challenge with Slay again at his best up high, the American home first again. The thrills and spills kept coming at Stockton Beach today. Conditions tough to say the least for the Stella Kappa Carnival and Surf Rescue Challenge. Belmont Swansea won the Masons Challenge for Surf Rescue, while Stockton won the coveted Stella Kappa title on home shores for the second successive year, beating Redhead. It's one of the highlights on the state harness racing calendar and also a carnival that continues to uncover the rising stars of the track.
The good thing about the race is now that it's a race for those young horses on the way up. Only good horses win this race now.
Last year's final finished with a two-horse fight for the line between Candy Rama and Franco Conquest, and it seems this year's carnival could be much the same. New Zealand runner Barcode has raced just 6 times in Australia for 2 wins and 4 seconds, while an Anna Bay trained pacer is also rated a good chance.
Magical Mike for Les Coslin, a horse who he's brought in to his stable specifically with this race in mind. It's got loads of ability.
The format of 5 heats, though, was a real leveller with just the top 2 in each to reach the $18,000 final on January 20.
It hasn't taken long for Linwood Estate to take form. The development has sprung up in a matter of months.
Some are being sold off the plan. We've got 9 available at the moment, and that's of a total of 30.
Being just 3 kilometres from the heart of Newcastle is one of the major draw cards, as is being right on the water.
The waterfronts have been the most popular. They have an average price of $290,000, and they've been selling exceptionally well over the last 6 months.
Riding on the wave of success, Honeysuckle is now planning to release more land for housing development.
Stage 1 is now all sold, and indeed the developers have sold there. Stage 2 is now all allocated, and we'll be releasing another site in the next couple of months.
Honeysuckle Development General Manager Angus Dawson believes the development is helping to change the face of the foreshore.
There were just old wooden sheds here in the past. Now we have 4 hectares of parkland on the water and these magnificent terrace houses which are selling very well.
Tanya Carlisle, NBN News.